Stop this wedding! The church doors burst open. A woman storms in with 2 children holding her hands. The music stops. The guests turn. The bride freezes. The woman points directly at the groom. Ethan, you forgot something. The groom's face turns pale. Grace, what are you doing here? He whispers nervously. Grace laughs bitterly. What am I doing here? She pulls the little boy forward. Maybe you should ask your son. The boy crosses his arms and looks straight at the groom. Hi, Dad. The entire wedding hall explodes with shock. The bride's smile disappears. Dad, she whispers slowly, turning to Ethan. You said you were single. Grace raises her hand calmly. A wedding ring shines under the church lights. Oh, he is single, Grace says sarcastically. Single enough to forget his wife and 2 kids. The little girl tugs Grace's dress. Mommy, why is Daddy marrying another lady? Some guests gasp. Others pull out their phones. The bride suddenly grabs Ethan's collar. You have a wife and kids? Slap! The sound echoes through the hall. Grace folds her arms, watching calmly. Well, this wedding just became family therapy. Guests start whispering. Best wedding drama ever. I didn't even get my food yet. The bride rips off her veil. You lied to me for 2 years. Ethan stammers nervously. Wait, I can explain. Grace laughs loudly. Oh, please explain. We're all listening. The little boy adds loudly, Yeah, Dad, this is better than my football game you never came to. Some guests begin laughing. The priest clears his throat awkwardly. According to this document, Ethan is still legally married. The bride throws her bouquet at Ethan. Congratulations, she says angrily. You just married your biggest problem. Grace grabs her kid's hands and starts walking out. Before leaving, she turns back and smiles. Enjoy the cake, everyone. The wedding is canceled. The doors slam shut behind her. And just like that, Ethan's perfect wedding turned into the biggest embarrassment of his life. Like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more shocking stories. Now grab your popcorn, sit back, relax, and enjoy the full story. The doors burst open. Do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? The question floated through the luxurious wedding hall like a soft melody. The room glittered with gold decorations and crystal chandeliers. White roses lined the aisle. Cameras flashed. Guests smiled. At the altar stood Ethan, tall, handsome, dressed in an expensive black tuxedo. Beside him stood Vanessa, the beautiful bride in a sparkling white gown. Vanessa's eyes were full of happiness. She squeezed Ethan's hand gently. I do, she said softly. The crowd applauded. The priest turned to Ethan. And do you, Ethan Collins, take this woman? Bang! The massive wooden doors of the wedding hall slammed open so violently that the sound echoed across the entire room. Gasps filled the hall. Everyone turned. Standing at the entrance was a woman. Her hair was messy. Her eyes were red from crying. Her clothes were simple, almost worn. Beside her stood 2 small children, holding her hands tightly. A boy around 8, a little girl around 5. The woman's voice cut through the silence like a knife. Stop this wedding! The entire hall froze. The bride blinked in confusion. Excuse me? Vanessa whispered. The woman slowly walked down the aisle, her footsteps echoing loudly against the marble floor. The little girl clung tightly to her dress. The boy stared angrily at the groom. The guests began whispering. Who is that woman? Security! What is going on? Ethan's face turned pale. Grace! The woman stopped directly in front of the altar. Her eyes burned with pain. Yes, she said coldly. Your wife. The entire room erupted. What? Vanessa looked from Grace to Ethan in shock. Wife? She whispered. She turned to Ethan slowly. Ethan, what is she talking about? Ethan opened his mouth, but no words came out. Grace let out a bitter laugh. Oh, don't look so confused, Grace said. You're about to marry my husband. Vanessa's hands began shaking. That's impossible, she said quickly. Ethan told me he was single. Grace's laugh turned sharp and painful. Single? She repeated. She grabbed the hand of the little boy beside her and pulled him forward. Then explain this. The boy glared directly at Ethan. Hi, Dad, he said angrily. The room exploded with shocked voices. Vanessa staggered backward. You have children? Ethan ran through his hair nervously. Vanessa, listen. Grace cut him off immediately. No, she snapped. You listen, Ethan. Her voice trembled with years of anger. For 10 years, I stood beside you. For 10 years, I supported you while you built your business. For 10 years, I believed you loved me. Her voice cracked. And today, you try to marry another woman? Vanessa's breathing became heavy. Ethan, she whispered, tell me she's lying. Ethan looked trapped. His eyes moved between Grace and Vanessa. It's complicated, he said weakly. Grace laughed loudly. Oh, yes, she said sarcastically. Marriage and 2 children are very complicated things to forget. Some guests began recording the drama with their phones. The little girl tugged Grace's dress. Mommy, is Daddy marrying that lady? Grace's heart shattered hearing the question. She knelt down and hugged her daughter tightly. No, sweetheart, she said softly, her eyes lifted toward Ethan. Not today. Vanessa suddenly ripped the veil from her head. You lied to me? Ethan stepped toward her. Vanessa, calm down. Slap! The sound echoed through the hall. Vanessa had slapped him hard across the face. You told me your past relationships were over, she shouted. Grace folded her arms. Past? She said coldly. She raised her left hand slowly. A wedding ring glittered under the lights. I'm still very much present. The guests murmured louder. Ethan looked completely cornered now. Grace, you weren't supposed to come here. Grace's eyes widened with disbelief. I wasn't supposed to come, she repeated slowly. So you planned to just erase us? She pointed at the children. Your own kids? The boy stepped forward angrily. You promised you would come to my school football game, he said. You never came. The little girl sniffed. You told me you loved Mommy. Vanessa looked like she was about to faint. She turned to Grace. Did you know about me? Grace nodded slowly. Yes. Vanessa's voice trembled. And you still let this wedding happen? Grace smiled sadly. I needed him to show his true face. Her eyes turned back to Ethan. And he did. Ethan suddenly snapped. Enough of this drama. The entire hall went silent again. I was going to take care of things later, Ethan said angrily. Grace blinked. Take care of things? Yes. Yes, he said impatiently. Our marriage was already dead. Grace laughed softly. Oh, really? She pulled a folded document from her purse. Then maybe you should explain this. She handed it to the priest. The priest adjusted his glasses and read the paper. His eyes widened. Mr. Ethan Collins, he said slowly, you are still legally married to Mrs. Grace Collins. Gasps filled the room again. The priest looked extremely uncomfortable. I cannot continue this wedding. Vanessa stared at Ethan like she was seeing a stranger. You ruined my life, she whispered. Ethan clenched his jaw. Grace turned to the guests. Enjoy the free food, everyone, she said dryly. Weddings canceled. Some people actually laughed nervously. Grace grabbed her children's hands. Come on, she said. They began walking back toward the door, but Ethan suddenly shouted, Grace, wait. She stopped, slowly, without turning around. What? She asked coldly. Ethan's voice softened. We can fix this. Grace turned slowly. Her eyes were completely empty now. No, she said quietly. You broke it. Then she walked out. The doors closed behind her, leaving Ethan standing at the altar beside the woman he had betrayed, in front of hundreds of shocked witnesses. You ruined everything. Vanessa's voice echoed through the empty wedding hall. Most of the guests had already left. The decorations still glittered under the lights, but the celebration had turned into humiliation. Ethan stood near the altar, loosening his tie. Vanessa, calm down, he said tiredly. Calm down? Vanessa shouted, throwing her bouquet to the floor. You lied to me for 2 years. Ethan rubbed his temples. I was going to explain. When? Vanessa snapped. After we had children too? Silence filled the room. Vanessa stared at him like she had never known him. You told me your marriage ended years ago. It practically did, Ethan muttered. Vanessa laughed bitterly. Really? Because your ended marriage just walked in here with 2 children. Ethan clenched his fists. You don't understand my situation. Oh, I understand perfectly, Vanessa said coldly. You are a liar. She grabbed the edge of her wedding dress angrily. I left everything for you, she continued. My apartment, my job in another city, my family warned me about you. Ethan looked irritated now. Well, maybe you should have listened to them. The words shocked even himself. Vanessa's eyes widened. Wow, she whispered. Now it's my fault? Ethan sighed heavily. Look, the wedding is ruined. Let's just deal with this quietly. Quietly? Vanessa repeated. She picked up a glass from the table and smashed it against the wall. Crash! You destroyed my life in front of hundreds of people. Ethan's patience was running out. Stop being dramatic. Vanessa stared at him for a long moment. Then she began laughing. Not normal laughter. The kind of laughter that comes when someone is completely broken. Oh, Ethan, she said slowly, you really don't understand what you've done. Ethan frowned. What do you mean? Vanessa stepped closer to him. Her voice became calm. too calm. I gave up everything for you, she said quietly. Do you know what that means? Ethan shrugged. You'll be fine. Vanessa smiled. Yes, she said. I will. She picked up her phone. Because now I have nothing left to protect you for. Ethan's stomach tightened. What are you talking about? Vanessa looked him straight in the eyes. You think I didn't notice your secrets? His heart skipped. Secrets? Vanessa tilted her head. The hidden bank accounts. The fake business deals. The tax fraud. Ethan's face went pale. Vanessa. She smiled sweetly. Oh yes, she said softly. I know everything. Ethan grabbed her arm suddenly. Lower your voice. Vanessa pulled her arm away. Why? She asked loudly. Afraid someone will hear? The few remaining staff members in the hall looked over nervously. Ethan lowered his voice. You're going too far. Vanessa leaned closer to him. No, she whispered. You did. She turned and began walking toward the exit. Ethan followed quickly. Where are you going? Vanessa stopped at the door. She turned slowly. To meet your wife. Ethan froze. You're not going anywhere near Grace. Vanessa smiled. Why not? Because you'll make things worse. Vanessa laughed again. Oh, Ethan, things are already worse. She opened the door. And now I want the truth. Meanwhile, rain began to fall outside the city. Grace walked slowly down the sidewalk with her children. The little girl sniffled. Mommy, are you crying? Grace quickly wiped her eyes. No, sweetheart, she said gently. But the boy, Lucas, wasn't fooled. He's a terrible father, Lucas said angrily. Grace looked at him. Lucas? No. The boy continued. I heard him shouting at you before. Grace sighed. Adults sometimes make bad choices. Lucas kicked a small stone across the road. He didn't just make a bad choice, Lucas said. He chose someone else. Grace had no answer for that. Her daughter Lily squeezed her hand. Mommy, are we still a family? Grace's heart broke. She knelt down in front of both children. Listen to me carefully, she said softly. No matter what happens between me and your father, you two are my whole world. Lily hugged her tightly. Lucas looked away, trying to hide his tears. Suddenly, a car pulled up beside them. Grace stiffened. The window rolled down. Vanessa sat inside, still wearing her wedding dress. Grace's eyes widened in disbelief. Vanessa looked exhausted, but determined. Grace, she said quietly. Grace stood slowly. What do you want? Vanessa swallowed. I need to talk to you. Grace crossed her arms. Why would I talk to you? Vanessa's voice trembled slightly. Because we were both lied to. Grace looked at her for a long moment. Then she said coldly, You still tried to marry my husband. Vanessa nodded. I didn't know he was still your husband. Lucas stepped in front of his mother protectively. Go away, he said angrily. Vanessa looked at the children sadly. I'm sorry? She whispered. Grace watched her carefully. You expect me to believe that? Vanessa opened the car door and stepped out. Rain soaked her wedding dress instantly. I don't expect anything, she said. I just want the truth. Grace laughed bitterly. You came to the wrong person. Vanessa looked directly into her eyes. Did you know Ethan is committing financial crimes? Grace froze. What? Vanessa nodded slowly. He's been stealing money from his business partners for years. Grace stared at her. That's impossible. Vanessa pulled out her phone. I have proof. Grace's world began to spin. Lucas looked confused. Mom, what's happening? Grace looked back at Vanessa. Why are you telling me this? Vanessa's voice became cold. Because if Ethan lied to both of us, her eyes hardened, then we both deserve revenge. Lightning flashed across the sky. Grace stared at her. Two women, both betrayed by the same man. And in that moment, a dangerous alliance began. If you'd like, I can continue with chapter 3, where things get even more intense. Ethan realizes Vanessa and Grace may join forces. A shocking secret about Ethan's business empire appears. The children accidentally discover something about their father, and someone mysterious begins watching Grace. Rain poured heavily on the quiet street. Grace stood still, staring at Vanessa like she was trying to decide whether to trust her or send her away forever. Lucas held his little sister's hand tightly. Mom, can we go home? Lily whispered. Grace nodded gently. Just a minute, sweetheart. Vanessa wiped rain from her face, but it didn't matter. Her expensive wedding dress was already soaked. Grace looked at her sharply. You said you have proof, Grace said. Vanessa slowly raised her phone. Yes, Grace hesitated. Show me. Vanessa unlocked the phone and opened a folder. Ethan used me, she said quietly. He thought I was just his girlfriend, someone pretty he could show off at business events. Grace frowned. Then how do you know all this? Vanessa gave a small, bitter smile, because he also made the mistake of trusting me. She handed the phone to Grace. Grace's eyes scanned the screen. Bank transfers, secret accounts, millions of dollars moving between different companies. Grace's hands started shaking. This can't be real. Vanessa nodded slowly. Oh, it's real. Lucas stepped closer. What is it, Mom? Grace quickly locked the phone. Nothing you need to worry about. Vanessa crossed her arms. Your husband isn't just a liar, she said. He's a criminal. Grace looked back at her. Why are you helping me? Vanessa laughed softly. Helping you? She shook her head. I'm helping myself. Grace's voice became cold. Explain. Vanessa took a deep breath. 2 years ago, Ethan approached me at a business party. He said he was divorced. Grace's jaw tightened. He told me his ex-wife hated him and took everything. Grace scoffed. That's rich. Vanessa nodded. Yes, it is. She continued. He said he was rebuilding his life, that he needed someone loyal beside him. Grace folded her arms, and you believed him. Vanessa shrugged. At first. Grace raised an eyebrow. What changed? Vanessa's face darkened. I started noticing things. Like what? Grace asked. Phone calls late at night. Meetings with men who looked more like criminals than businessmen. Money moving between accounts that didn't make sense. Grace listened carefully. And? Vanessa sighed. So I started digging. Lucas whispered to his sister. Mom looks angry. Lily nodded quietly. Vanessa continued speaking. What I found scared me. Grace looked down at the phone again. These transactions, they're huge. Vanessa nodded. Millions. Grace felt her stomach twist. Ethan always said the company was struggling. Vanessa smirked. That's because he was hiding the money. Grace looked up slowly. From who? Vanessa's voice dropped. From his business partners. Grace felt a chill run down her spine. You're saying he's stealing from them? Vanessa nodded. Yes. Grace looked toward the dark road. Those men, they won't forgive that. Vanessa gave a small, humorless laugh. No, they won't. For a moment, neither woman spoke. The rain continued falling. Finally, Grace said quietly, You still haven't answered my question. Vanessa tilted her head. Which one? Why you're really here? Vanessa met her eyes. Because Ethan ruined both our lives. Grace's voice hardened. And you want revenge. Vanessa nodded. Yes. Lucas suddenly stepped forward. You shouldn't trust her, Mom. Both women looked at him. The boy crossed his arms. She tried to marry Dad. Vanessa looked ashamed. You're right, she said softly. Lucas frowned, surprised by the honesty. But I didn't know the truth, Vanessa added. Lily tugged Grace's sleeve. Mommy, I'm cold. Grace sighed. All right, we're leaving. She handed the phone back to Vanessa. This isn't my problem. Vanessa's eyes widened. What? Grace grabbed her children's hands. I just want my kids safe. Vanessa stared at her. You think Ethan will leave you alone? Grace stopped walking. Vanessa continued. Men like him never lose quietly. Grace slowly turned back. Vanessa stepped closer. You exposed him today in front of hundreds of people. Grace's heart sank. He will come after you. Lucas squeezed his mother's hand. Mom? Grace looked at Vanessa carefully. What do you want from me? Vanessa's eyes sharpened. Help me destroy him. Grace laughed bitterly. Destroy him? Vanessa nodded. Yes. Grace shook her head. I'm not interested in revenge. Vanessa stepped closer. You should be. Grace's patience snapped. I spent 10 years loving that man. Her voice trembled with emotion. I don't want to spend the rest of my life hating him, too. The rain grew heavier. Vanessa stared at her silently. Then she said quietly, You don't have to hate him. Grace frowned. Then what? Vanessa's lips curved into a dangerous smile. Just make him lose everything. Grace said nothing, but the thought stayed in her mind. Across the city, inside a luxury penthouse apartment, Ethan paced angrily. His best friend Marcus sat on the couch watching him. You look like hell, Marcus said. Ethan glared at him. My wedding just got destroyed. Marcus shrugged. Well, that tends to happen when your wife shows up. Ethan slammed a glass onto the table. Grace had no right, Marcus laughed. No right? She's your wife. Ethan rubbed his face. I should have finalized the divorce earlier. Marcus leaned forward. So what now? Ethan's eyes darkened. Now, I fix this. Marcus raised an eyebrow. And how exactly do you plan to fix a public scandal? Ethan stopped pacing. His voice became cold. Grace thinks she embarrassed me today. Marcus nodded slowly. She did. Ethan smiled slightly. But she made one mistake. Marcus frowned. What mistake? Ethan looked out the window into the dark city. She thinks I still care about playing nice. Marcus suddenly felt uneasy. Ethan, what are you planning? Ethan's smile grew darker. If Grace wants war, his voice dropped to a whisper. She's about to get it. The rain had stopped by the time Grace and her children reached their small apartment. It was nothing like the luxurious house Ethan lived in. The building was old. The hallway lights flickered, but to Grace, it was the only place that still felt safe. Lucas pushed the door open. Finally, he muttered. Lily dropped her little backpack on the couch. I'm hungry. Grace forced a smile. I'll make something, but her mind was far away. The image of Vanessa's phone screen kept flashing in her head. Millions of dollars, secret accounts, illegal transactions. Her husband... No, her soon-to-be ex-husband. Grace rubbed her forehead. How did I never see it? She whispered. Lucas heard her. You trusted him, the boy said quietly. Grace looked at her son in surprise. You shouldn't worry about adult problems. Lucas shrugged. I'm not a baby, Mom. Lily suddenly ran into the kitchen. Mommy, look. Grace turned. What is it? Lily pointed out the window. A black car. Grace walked over slowly. Outside, parked across the street, was a dark sedan. The windows were tinted. The engine was still running. Grace frowned. That's strange. Lucas narrowed his eyes. That car was near the wedding, too. Grace looked at him sharply. You saw it? Lucas nodded. Yeah, it was parked outside the church. Grace felt a chill crawl up her spine. Maybe it's nothing, she said quickly, but her voice sounded unsure. The car suddenly drove away. Grace watched it disappear down the street. Something didn't feel right. Across the city, inside a quiet cafe, Vanessa sat alone with her laptop open. Her wedding dress was gone now. She wore simple clothes, but her expression was focused, determined. A man sat across from her. He was older, gray hair, sharp eyes. Miss Vanessa, he said calmly, why are you interested in Ethan Collins? Vanessa leaned back in her chair. Let's say I was almost his wife. The man raised an eyebrow. Almost? Vanessa smiled slightly. His actual wife showed up. The man chuckled softly. That must have been entertaining. Vanessa didn't smile. I need information. The man closed the folder in front of him. Information costs money. Vanessa slid an envelope across the table. The man opened it. His eyebrows rose. That's a generous amount. Vanessa leaned forward. I want everything. What kind of everything, he asked. Business records. Hidden assets. And any enemies he has, the man studied her face. The man studied her face. You're planning something. Yes. The man nodded slowly. Well, you chose the right person. He pulled another folder from his bag. I already know a few things about Mr. Collins. Vanessa's curiosity sharpened. Like what? The man opened the folder. Ethan Collins owes money. Vanessa frowned. That doesn't make sense. He's rich. The man smiled slightly. He pretends to be rich. Vanessa leaned forward. Explain. The man tapped the file. His company is drowning in debt. Vanessa's eyes widened. What? Yes, the man said calmly. And the people he owes are not patient men. Vanessa's heart began racing. How much does he owe? The man turned the page. Vanessa read the number. Her eyes widened in shock. That's impossible. The man shrugged. Yet here we are. Vanessa slowly leaned back. Grace has no idea. The man nodded. No, but she will soon. Vanessa looked up. What do you mean? The man's voice became serious. Because the men Ethan owes money to, he paused, are already looking for him. Meanwhile, inside Ethan's penthouse, Marcus poured himself a drink. You're making a mistake, Marcus said. Ethan stood by the window, watching the city lights. No. Marcus shook his head. Grace humiliated you? I get that. But sending someone to watch her? Ethan turned slowly. I need to know what she's doing. Marcus sighed. She's raising your kids. Ethan's expression hardened. She's talking to Vanessa. Marcus froze. What? Ethan nodded. My driver saw them together. Marcus rubbed his face. That's bad. Yes, Ethan said quietly. Very bad. Marcus sat down. If those two start sharing information... Ethan finished the sentence. Everything could collapse. Marcus looked at him carefully. So what's your plan? Ethan picked up his phone. I already told someone to keep an eye on Grace. Marcus frowned. You mean the car outside her apartment? Ethan nodded. Marcus shook his head slowly. You're crossing a dangerous line. Ethan's voice became icy. She crossed it first. Marcus stared at him. What if she finds out? Ethan smiled faintly. She won't. Later that night, Grace tucked Lily into bed. Good night, sweetheart. Good night, Mommy. Lucas stood by the doorway. Mom? Yes. Are we in trouble? Grace forced a smile. No. But Lucas didn't believe her. I saw the car again. Grace's stomach tightened. Where? outside the building. Grace walked to the window slowly, and there it was again, the same black sedan, parked under a streetlight, watching. Grace felt fear creeping into her chest. She grabbed her phone. Her finger hovered over Vanessa's number. Finally, she pressed call. Vanessa answered after one ring. Hello? Grace's voice was tense. You said Ethan had enemies. Vanessa sat up straight. Yes. Grace swallowed. I think one of them is watching my house. Silence filled the line. Then Vanessa said quietly, That's not his enemies. Grace frowned. What? Vanessa's voice turned serious. That's Ethan. Grace felt the blood drain from her face. He's watching you. Grace looked back out the window. The car's headlights suddenly turned on. Then slowly, it drove away. Grace whispered, This is getting dangerous. Vanessa replied calmly, Then it's time we stop playing defense. Grace hesitated. What do you mean? Vanessa's voice hardened. It's time we start destroying Ethan Collins. Grace stared into the dark street, and for the first time, she didn't say no. Grace barely slept that night. Every small sound from the street made her open her eyes. A car passing, footsteps in the hallway, a door closing somewhere in the building. Her mind kept repeating Vanessa's words. It's time we start destroying Ethan Collins. Grace turned in her bed and stared at the ceiling. 10 years. 10 years of marriage. 10 years of believing in Ethan. And now everything had turned into lies. She whispered softly to herself, How did it all go so wrong? Morning. The apartment smelled of toast and coffee. Grace was preparing breakfast when Lucas walked into the kitchen. You didn't sleep, he said. Grace looked surprised. How do you know? Lucas shrugged. You were walking around all night. Grace forced a smile. Just thinking. Lily ran into the kitchen happily. Mommy, I had a dream. Grace knelt down. What kind of dream? Lily giggled. You chased Daddy with a broom. Lucas burst out laughing. Grace couldn't help smiling too. Well, she said jokingly, that might happen someday. For a brief moment, the tension disappeared, but the doorbell suddenly rang. Grace froze. Lucas looked toward the door. Are you expecting someone? Grace shook her head slowly. No. The doorbell rang again. Lily whispered nervously. Mommy. Grace walked slowly to the door. Her heart beat faster. She opened it carefully. Vanessa stood there, holding 2 cups of coffee. Morning, she said. Grace sighed. Really? Vanessa held up the cups. Peace offering. Grace hesitated, then stepped aside. Vanessa walked in. Lucas folded his arms. You're the wedding lady. Vanessa smiled awkwardly. Yes, that's me. Lily tilted her head. Why were you marrying Daddy? Vanessa didn't know how to answer. Grace quickly stepped in. Kids, go finish breakfast. Lucas and Lily walked back to the kitchen. Vanessa watched them quietly. They're beautiful, she said softly. Grace sat down. What do you want? Yeah, Vanessa placed her laptop on the table. I found something. Grace frowned. Already? Vanessa opened the screen. Remember the investigator I told you about? Grace nodded. He sent me this last night. She turned the laptop around. Grace leaned closer. Documents filled the screen. Business records, company transfers, hidden contracts. Grace's eyes widened. This is insane, Vanessa nodded. Ethan's company is basically a giant scam. Grace felt anger boiling inside her. Those partners he cheated. They're dangerous, Vanessa finished. Grace rubbed her temples. So if they find out, Vanessa's voice was calm, they will destroy him. Grace looked at her. And what about us? Vanessa leaned back. That depends on how smart we are. Grace crossed her arms. You're enjoying this too much. Vanessa smirked slightly. I warned you. Grace sighed. What's your plan? Vanessa's eyes lit up. We leak the truth. Grace blinked. Leak it? Yes, Vanessa said. To the press. Grace shook her head immediately. No, Vanessa frowned. Why not? Grace pointed toward the children in the kitchen. Because that man is still their father. Vanessa looked thoughtful. Fair, Grace continued, but I still want him exposed. Vanessa smiled slowly. Then we do it quietly. Grace raised an eyebrow. How? Vanessa opened another file. This. Grace read the document. Her eyes widened again. A secret offshore account? Vanessa nodded. And Ethan moved a huge amount of money there. Grace looked confused. Why hide it? Vanessa smiled. Because that money doesn't belong to him. Grace suddenly understood. You mean his partner's money? Vanessa nodded. Yes. Grace leaned back slowly. If they discover that account... Vanessa finished the sentence. Ethan's life will explode. Grace stared at the screen. For the first time, she felt a dangerous sense of satisfaction. That night, The apartment building was quiet. Lucas sat on the couch playing a game on his tablet. Lily was already asleep. Grace washed dishes in the kitchen. Suddenly, click. Lucas looked up. Mom? Grace stopped. Did you hear that? Lucas nodded slowly. It sounded like the door. Grace frowned. But I locked it. They both looked toward the hallway. Another sound echoed softly. Crake. Grace's heart began racing. She whispered, Lucas? But now. Lucas grabbed his tablet and quietly ran to his room. Grace slowly picked up a heavy frying pan from the kitchen. Her hands were shaking. The hallway was dark. Another sound. Footstep. Someone was inside. Grace's voice trembled, but she shouted, Who is there? No answer. The footsteps moved closer. Grace gripped the frying pan tighter. Leave my house, she shouted. The shadow of a man appeared in the hallway. Grace swung the pan. Whack! The man dodged quickly. Wait, he shouted. Grace froze. The man raised his hands, thinking, I'm not here to hurt you. Grace's voice shook with anger. Then why are you in my house? The man stepped into the light. He was tall, wearing dark clothes. His expression was serious. I need to talk to you about Ethan Collins. Grace's heart skipped. What? The man glanced toward the children's rooms. We shouldn't talk here. Grace pointed the frying pan at him. You have 10 seconds to explain. The man sighed. My name is Victor. Grace narrowed her eyes. And? Victor's voice became grave. I work for the men Ethan owes money to. Grace's blood ran cold. Victor continued. They believe Ethan stole millions from them. Grace whispered, He did. Victor nodded slowly. That's why I'm here. Grace swallowed. Are you going to hurt him? Victor's expression was unreadable. That depends. Grace tightened her grip on the pan. Depends on what? Victor looked directly at her. On whether you help us find him first. Grace felt the world spinning again. Behind the hallway door, Lucas was secretly recording the entire conversation on his tablet, and he had no idea that recording would soon change everything. End of Chapter 5. If you'd like, Chapter 6 becomes even more explosive, including Lucas accidentally captures a secret about Ethan on video. Ethan discovers someone broke into Grace's apartment. Vanessa learns a shocking truth about Ethan's past marriage, and the dangerous men finally come face to face with Grace. Stared at the stranger standing inside her apartment. The frying pan was still raised in her trembling hands. My name is Victor, the man repeated calmly. Grace's voice was cold. You broke into my home. Victor sighed. Yes, and I'm aware that makes this conversation very uncomfortable. Grace almost laughed. Uncomfortable, you think? Victor slowly raised both hands again. I told you, I'm not here to hurt you. Grace didn't lower the pan. And you said you work for the men Ethan owes money to. Victor nodded. That's correct. Grace's chest tightened. And you're looking for him. Yes. Grace shook her head slowly. You came to the wrong place. Victor studied her face. You're his wife. Grace's voice sharpened. Not for long. Victor looked around the apartment. This doesn't look like the home of a wealthy businessman's family. Grace said nothing. Victor continued. That tells me something. Grace crossed her arms. What? Victor spoke quietly. Ethan abandoned you. Grace finally lowered the frying pan slightly. That's none of your business. Victor nodded. True, he paused. But Ethan stealing millions from dangerous men unfortunately makes it your business. Grace felt the tension returning. You should leave. Victor didn't move. Listen carefully, Grace. Her name in his mouth made her uncomfortable. How do you know my name? Victor gave a small smile. Bullshit, my employers like to know everything. Grace's stomach twisted. Are you threatening me? Victor shook his head. No. He pulled a photo from his pocket and placed it on the table. Grace slowly walked closer. The photo showed Ethan shaking hands with 3 men. Men who looked cold, powerful, dangerous. Grace whispered, Who are they? Victor answered quietly. The people Ethan stole from. Grace looked back at him. And what happens when they find him? Victor's voice turned serious. That depends on how cooperative he is. Grace knew exactly what that meant. Behind the hallway door, Lucas held his tablet tightly. He was still recording everything. His heart was beating fast. Across the city inside Ethan's penthouse, Marcus was pacing nervously. You sent someone to watch Grace, Marcus said. Ethan poured himself a drink. Yes, Marcus shook his head. Well, that someone just called. Ethan looked up. And, Marcus hesitated. He said someone else got to Grace first. Ethan froze. What? Marcus continued. A man broke into her apartment tonight. Ethan's face darkened. Who? Marcus swallowed. He thinks it's one of the men you owe. The glass in Ethan's hand shattered. Crack! Ethan's voice became dangerous. No. Marcus looked worried. You should leave the city. Ethan shook his head slowly. I'm not running. Marcus stared at him. They will kill you. Ethan wiped blood from his hand. Not before I fix this. Marcus sighed. You should never have stolen that money. Ethan looked out the window. It was supposed to be temporary. Marcus laughed bitterly. Yeah, that's what criminals always say. Back at Grace's apartment, Victor was preparing to leave. I've said what I needed to say, he told Grace. Grace watched him carefully. You expect me to help you find Ethan? Victor shrugged. You might want to. Grace's eyes hardened. Why? Victor looked toward the children's room. Because the men I work for are losing patience. Grace's voice dropped. Are you saying my children are in danger? Victor quickly shook his head. No. But Ethan's actions create consequences. Grace's hands trembled again. Victor opened the door. Think about what I said. Before leaving, he paused. One more thing. Grace looked at him. Victor's expression softened slightly. You deserve better than the man you married. Then he disappeared into the hallway. Grace closed the door slowly. Her whole body felt weak. Lucas ran out of his room. Mom! Grace hugged him tightly. It's okay. Lucas held up the tablet. I recorded everything. Grace blinked. You what? Lucas nodded. In case he was dangerous. Grace stared at the screen. The video clearly showed Victor talking about Ethan's crimes. Grace whispered softly, This could destroy him. Lucas asked carefully, Are you going to show the police? Grace didn't answer, but her mind was already racing. Across town, Vanessa sat inside her apartment when her phone rang. Grace's name appeared on the screen. Vanessa answered immediately. Grace? Grace's voice sounded shaken. You were right. Vanessa sat up. What happened? Grace took a deep breath. One of Ethan's enemies came to my apartment tonight. Vanessa's eyes widened. What? Grace continued. He told me Ethan stole millions. Vanessa closed her eyes slowly. I knew it. Grace added, and Lucas recorded everything. Vanessa was silent for a moment. Then she said quietly, This changes everything. Grace looked toward her sleeping daughter. What should we do? Vanessa's voice became serious. Tomorrow, we end this. Late that night, Ethan sat alone in his penthouse. The city lights flickered outside. His phone suddenly buzzed. A message appeared. Unknown number. We know where you are. Ethan's heart skipped. Another message followed. You have 24 hours to return our money. Then the final message appeared. Or we start collecting from your family. Ethan stared at the screen in horror. For the first time, he realized his life was completely falling apart. And tomorrow, everything would finally explode. Morning came quietly, but for Ethan Collins, it felt like the last day of his life. He had not slept. The threatening messages on his phone kept repeating in his mind. 24 hours, or we start collecting from your family. Ethan stared at his reflection in the mirror. His once confident face now looked tired, desperate. He grabbed his car keys. There's still a way out, he whispered to himself. Meanwhile, inside a small cafe downtown, Grace sat across from Vanessa. Lucas sat beside his mother holding his tablet. Lily was drawing quietly with crayons. Vanessa leaned forward. Are you ready? Grace took a deep breath. Yes. Lucas looked nervous. Mom, are we doing the right thing? Grace gently touched his shoulder. Sometimes the truth is the only way to stop bad people. Lucas nodded slowly. Vanessa plugged the tablet into her laptop. The video began playing. Victor's voice filled the room. Ethan Collins stole millions from dangerous men. Grace looked at Vanessa. This will destroy him. Vanessa's eyes were calm. He destroyed himself. Grace nodded. Let's send it. Vanessa pressed send. The video was immediately forwarded to the police, several news stations, Ethan's business partners. Within seconds, the truth began spreading. 1 hour later, Ethan was driving across the city when his phone started ringing. Again and again and again. Marcus, business partners, unknown numbers. Finally, he answered Marcus. What? Ethan shouted. Marcus sounded panicked. The video is everywhere. Ethan slammed the brakes. What video? Marcus yelled. The one exposing your stolen money. Ethan felt the world spinning. That's impossible. Marcus's voice trembled. The police are already looking for you. Ethan's heart began pounding. No, 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 Marcus continued. And the men you owe? They saw it too. Ethan hung up. Fear gripped him completely. He realized only one thing mattered now. Grace. Outside Grace's apartment, Grace stepped outside with Vanessa and the children. Suddenly, a black car screeched to a stop. Ethan jumped out. Grace. Lucas immediately moved in front of his mother. You stay away from her. Ethan looked wild. What did you do? Grace's voice was calm. I told the truth. Ethan ran his hands through his hair. You ruined my life. Grace's eyes filled with pain. You did that yourself. Vanessa stepped forward. You lied to everyone. Ethan glared at her. You were supposed to be on my side. Vanessa laughed bitterly. You tried to marry me while still married. Ethan turned back to Grace. You could have handled this privately. Grace's voice rose. Private? Her emotions exploded. You humiliated our family. You abandoned your children. You tried to start a new life like we didn't exist. Lucas shouted angrily. You're a terrible father. The words hit Ethan like a punch. For a moment, he had no response. Then suddenly, several black SUVs arrived. Victor stepped out. Behind him stood the same dangerous men from the photograph. Ethan's face turned white. No, Victor spoke calmly. Mr. Collins, Ethan slowly backed away. Stay away from me. Before anything could happen, police sirens filled the street. Police cars surrounded the area. Officers jumped out. Ethan Collins! Put your hands up! Ethan looked around in panic. Grace, Vanessa, Victor, the police. Everyone staring at him. His empire, his lies, his life, all collapsing at once. Slowly, Ethan raised his hands. The police placed him in handcuffs. As they pushed him into the police car, he looked back at Grace. His voice was broken. Grace, please. Grace looked at him quietly, but there was no more love in her eyes, only peace. The police car drove away, and just like that, Ethan Collins lost everything. 6 months later, sunlight filled a small park. Grace sat on a bench watching Lucas play soccer. Lily ran around laughing. Vanessa walked over with 2 cups of coffee. Here, Grace smiled. Thanks. Vanessa sat beside her. You look happier. Grace nodded. For the first time in years. Vanessa looked at the children. Ethan was sentenced yesterday. Grace sighed softly. 5 years in prison. Vanessa shrugged. Justice. Lucas ran over happily. Mom, did you see my goal? Grace laughed. Yes, superstar. Lily hugged her mother. Mommy, are we okay now? Grace kissed her forehead. Yes, sweetheart. She looked up at the bright sky. We're more than okay. And for the first time, Grace truly meant it. Because sometimes the end of betrayal is the beginning of freedom. The end. Now we want to ask our amazing fans something. What did you learn from this story? Maybe you learned that lies always come out eventually. Betrayal destroys everything. Loyalty and truth are more powerful than money. And no matter how broken life feels, you can always start again. Tell us in the comments, what lesson did you learn from Grace's story? And if you enjoyed this emotional drama, don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Like this video, comment, and share. See you next time.